Part 30. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 305. Visiting late at night, Senior Lilith, still wearing her spring uniform, entered the administrator's cabin for the first time. But she was not attracted by the accommodation environment that was far superior to a student dormitory. Instead, she went straight to the purpose of coming here after taking her seat. Classmate Ling told me that you have heard about the current situation in the BZ Empire from others. Presumably senior sister Lilith explained the situation before she even entered the door, so Ling answered on her behalf. Senior Lilith seems to be here just for this matter. This will save you time in explaining. When Ling received senior sister Lilith at the entrance, he did not specifically mention the existence of Anili, and senior sister Lilith did not ask about their source of information. There is no news about the BZ Empire in Shimizuki Academy. This only shows that the content of the news is far more important than the channels through which it is obtained. We heard that Lan Ming wanted to assassinate the emperor, but I don't think she is the person who would do such a thing. Lan Ming is indeed a thoughtful and far-sighted princess. Aika understood this when she sent out the invitation the night before everyone left August. During the time she spent with Lan Ming in August, Aika felt her self-esteem and pride as a royal family from her words and deeds. My family has no contact with the royal family, and I have never dealt with the royal family directly, so I don't know much about Her Highness the Third Princess. But judging from the reputation among the people, she doesn't seem to care about me. Someone who is obsessed with status. The Lan Ming I know is also such a person, so he planned to assassinate the emperor in order to seek power and usurp the throne. Speaking of seeking power and usurping the throne, I wonder if you have noticed a contradiction. What is it? Aika only believed in Lan Ming from the bottom of her heart, but she did not notice the contradiction from the news conveyed by Unili. I think Ling must have noticed it. She said something was wrong when we were in the entrance hall just now. Is that so, Ling? Ling had never mentioned these words before. Aika couldn't help but wonder if she confronted Anili like that because she noticed details that everyone ignored. Ling didn't know whether it was out of helplessness or speechlessness and sighed slightly, and looked at senior sister Lilith as if she didn't want to say anything. But in response to her gaze, Senior Lilith made it clear that she would let her speak for herself. As a result, Ling could only express his rough speculation. That princess is planning to kill the emperor and let herself rule the BZ Empire, right? That's just what's said in the news. I know, but if you think about it for a moment, there is no need for her to do this. Even though Ling explained it so simply and clearly, Aika still couldn't figure out how this twist was connected. What I mean is that she is the first in line to succeed. As long as she waits a little longer, she can legitimately become the emperor. There is no need to make such big news to cause trouble, right? If you say so. After being reminded by Ling's few words, Aika complained that she didn't understand such a simple truth. Royal magic equipment is the first consideration in determining inheritance rights. In the history of the Ila family, it was the first time that a magic costume was inherited by two royal families, so the succession rights of the two princesses were determined based on their seniority. Before I left home, I also heard that His Excellency the Emperor had begun to hand over the political affairs of the country to the third princess. She also attended the ceremony of establishing diplomatic relations between our country and the Kingdom of Tiburai. It can be said that the political status has been stably established. After Ling finished speaking, senior sister Lilith further confirmed Ling's speculation. If that's the case, why did you use that statement before? Ling has noticed the contradictions in the news from the beginning, so there should be no reason to question Unili's subjective views. I just don't like to be induced by her like that. Besides, I just asked her what her purpose was. Senior Lilith probably couldn't understand what Aika and Ling were talking about, but she still followed the etiquette and listened quietly. Aika retracted his attitude. It was enough for him to know that Ling did not really think that Lan Ming might do what was said in the news. I don't really care about national affairs. Lan Ming approached me before and asked me to be her knight. At that time, I made excuses to refuse. In fact, it was probably just because I found it troublesome. Has such a thing ever happened? Senior sister Lilith was greatly surprised. If you become a knight directly affiliated with the knights, that would be very powerful. Ling was also approached and then refused. I'm just not interested in this kind of thing. Even if I have to work, I want to find something more relaxed. I said are you too naive or something? Senior sister Lilith really felt sorry for the two of them who rejected the royal family's invitation, but there is nothing you can do if you refuse formally. The royal family also has its own face. No, I will give you a second chance to choose. Senior Lilith is actually like this, right? Me. Ling tilted her head slightly, looking at the troubled Senior Lilith, and suddenly said this. If it were you, as a noble, you would definitely lead a very wealthy life, right? But you said you don't want to live such a life. Ah, I told you so. Senior Lilith has not forgotten her original intention, and she knows it very well without Ling's reminder. Thinking about others and thinking about yourself often lead to contradictory differences. Ahaha, maybe I'm not qualified to comment on your decision. Regardless of her family's objections and giving up her noble responsibilities, Senior Lilith knew that she was a negative example to the younger generations. I received contact from my family, and they asked me to stay at Frost Moon Academy. If I stay here, I won't be affected by anything in the country. Doesn't it matter to your family? Senior Lilith touched Wei 11's head naturally, which was obviously a habitual action. My family will probably not be affected by this kind of political change. Our family has nothing to do with politics. For them, it is just a change of leader. Shijizuki Academy is like a refuge. Senior Lilith just smiled in response to Ling's teasing. Because this is a neutral area recognized by the mainland, it is relatively safe. Although that is said, in fact, the nobles in the academy also have small factions, and we all represent our families here. That feeling is really annoying. It shouldn't be easy to see normally, and this phenomenon is only more obvious among humans. But there are exceptions, like the teacher of our virgin class. Teacher Tara. After spending a year at Shimazuki Academy, Aika had already accepted the fact that the waitress at the inn was the tutor of Shimazuki Academy. Well, her full name is Tara Kalu, the eldest daughter of the Kalu family. She also belongs to a family with the surname Fu, that's why she has that kind of magic costume. The foundation of omniscience, a magic suit that can move objects across different timelines, an extremely ridiculous ability. But it was this absurd ability that brought Aika and Ling into premature contact with part of the truth about the Holy See. Teacher Tara's situation is more complicated. The reason why she is called an exception is because she has now left the family with the magic costume. I will not talk about the matter of Tutor Tara for the time being. I am here to determine what you are going to do. Aika seems to be planning to go to the imperial capital in person and take the initiative to find the princess to confirm. I can just follow brother Aika. That kind of thing, there will be many experts over there to handle it. Luoluo's voice seemed like he hadn't heard it for a long time, and it even felt strange. It took everyone a little longer to understand these low-pitched words, but there was no usual hint of asserting one's own ideas in the words. Aika was undoubtedly the first person among everyone present to understand her. Lolo, do you think it would be better to do nothing? Can't go, can't go, can't go, don't want to go. When Luoluo said the long-lost words, the thoughts hidden deep in her heart poured into Aika's heart like a tide. Only when their feelings fluctuate violently can Aika and Luoluo share each other's voices. So far, Aika has only experienced this feeling twice. The feelings that were originally sealed in her heart lost their shackles the moment she opened her mouth. It's not that I don't want to do anything. But that's not what she said in her heart. These three simple words are not difficult to understand. Eventually, can't go turned into don't want to go. Luoluo, I don't want to be a hero, but Lan Ming has helped us a lot in August, and she is ours. At this point, Ika did not continue. He knew that it was a very despicable thing to show off the relationship between friends at this time. Luoluo's inner voice has disappeared from Ika's heart, and only the first voice leaked out of her heart. Classmate Luoluo, there are no experts in the political arena. Even if they exist, now that the news has been released, the experts who can stand with the third princess have become useless. Senior Lilith, is there any new progress in August? I'm sorry, I can only wait for the family's initiative to contact me, and there is no way to get new information. The nobles of the BZ Empire have dedicated family communication lines. Augustus's coup must have spread to all the imperial nobles in Shimizuki Academy. Senior Lilith is not wrong. I tried to contact Xiaoluo about the people around Lanming, but as expected I couldn't get in touch. The PDA placed in Ika's hand did not receive any response. Xiaoyun should be in the Holy See now. Liuyin. If Wei 11 didn't say it now, Ika would have almost forgotten the Holy See, which is closely connected to August. But if you need to ask Liuyin for help, you will have another layer of worries. If it's a problem of this level, you can't just ask for information as a friend, but you must take her identity into consideration. It doesn't matter if you let Liuyin help, she should know more details. I said you asked for help, but you still spoke so loudly. I saw that you hadn't spoken for such a long time, and you were probably taking care of some miscellaneous things, so I kindly reminded you. Ling took out her PDA, which meant that if Ika sat still, she would contact Liuyin personally. Already being seen by Xiao to such an extent, it is of course impossible for Ika to really let Ling seek help from Liuyin on her behalf. Okay, can I just contact her now? Wei 11, is there no problem at this time? I don't think Xiaoyun will sleep so early. It's already 11 o'clock in the evening. It's too early or too late. But it was already very late for Wei 11, and she still insisted on not showing any signs of fatigue tonight. Knowing such an important thing, I probably wouldn't be able to sleep even if I was lying in bed. Successfully evacuating Ika was Ling's purpose in provoking him like that. Luoluo's condition is still not very good, and Ling can understand her feelings. Having just returned from the ruins, and being involved in this matter before even having a good night's sleep, even the energetic Ling was a bit overwhelmed. When she first anticipated Ika's random decision, she had no special thoughts in her mind. Ling didn't want to admit that this was because she had experienced too much and had become numb to wandering on the edge of the Shura field. This is just messing around with Ika. Moreover, even if he doesn't agree with Ika's ideas at first, his correctness will always take up a greater proportion in the end. Therefore, Ling didn't feel anything wrong with his let nature take its course. Do you want anything to drink? No need to go to such trouble. Besides, I promised Tyruya to go back early, and I will leave soon. Speaking of which, the current time. The coffee to cheer them up was probably no longer needed, so Ling used the kettle on the table to pour a cup of warm water for everyone. The three girls in the family all have their own water glasses, and of course there are also water glasses specially used for entertaining guests. Thanks. Because this is not troublesome, senior sister Lilith has no reason to decline the kindness of her juniors. Ling looked at Luoluo holding the water glass and wondered whether he should directly inquire into the real reason for her rejection. But after seeing Luoluo gently blowing on the water as usual, and taking a sip, she gave up the idea. Probably, even I can't figure out the reason. Ling gave up her original plan and became idle waiting for Ika to come back. About 5 minutes passed, and Ika came back from the steps of the courtyard. How's it going? Have you contacted me? Looking at Ika shaking his head, he already knew the result, although this result was also expected by Ling. I'll try to contact her again tomorrow, and that's it for tonight. During the calm time in the courtyard, Aika also realized that such an impulsive decision was very risky. Lan Ming's problem cannot be ignored, but everyone's mood must also be considered. Luoluo left his seat. She approached Aika and apologized to Aika in front of everyone. "Brother, I'm sorry, what I said just now was a little too much. If you must distinguish right from wrong, it should all be attributed to your own willful behavior. Luoluo has no reason to apologize. As long as a creature can think, there will be things it is willing and unwilling to do. It would be better to say that Luoluo was able to always obey his own ideas because he unconsciously took advantage of her feelings. Not only Luoluo, but also Ling and Wei 11 had no reason to take risks with him. If they wanted to refuse, they could refuse at any time. But in fact, Ling will stick to her own ideas, and Wei 11 will occasionally put forward her own opinions, but they never completely deny themselves. Is this the bond between family members or the obedience born from ignorant love? Aika, who has realized the relationship between the three of them, still can't tell. I will seriously consider it again tomorrow. Luoluo, if you don't want to, just tell me with words. I don't want to burden you with Lan Ming's problem. Aika knew that her statement was inappropriate, as if she was comparing Lan Ming and Luoluo to discuss who was more important. Seeing that everyone's discussion had come to an end, senior sister Lilith left her seat first. Everyone, I will go back tonight. Tilyuya is still waiting for me in the dormitory. Senior Lilith, I'll give it to you. This is Shiyu Academy, there is no problem. Although it's not a question of safety, anyway, I'll go back with you. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 306. Walking alone with Senior Lilith on the way back to the girls' dormitory, Aika didn't know what to talk about. Aika proposed to send Senior Lilith back to bed just because of the principle that girls should not be allowed to walk alone at night. It was not because there was anything that needed to be said to her alone. As a result, there was no conversation between the two during the first part of the road, only the footsteps in the middle of the night could be heard clearly. On the way, senior sister Lilith suddenly asked a question without any premise. Aika-san, have you made a choice between them? Aika didn't realize for a moment what choice senior sister Lilith meant. Because I just made a casual observation and it seems that there isn't that kind of atmosphere between you yet. Ah, so that's what you were talking about. Aika once discussed emotional issues with senior sister Lilith, but she didn't expect that she still takes it to heart now. Although now is not the time to talk about such things, it shouldn't matter, right? Well, it doesn't matter. In contrast, the problem that should be solved most urgently should be the ambiguous relationship between family members. Compared with national events and the atmosphere of getting along with family members, the latter is of course more important. So, any progress after that? Even for Aika himself, it is extremely difficult to answer this question. In what ways does taking a step forward in family relationships manifest? Wei 11 confessed to herself in the ruins and brought Luoluo and Ling out together. Her feelings were also understood through two contracts. The night I returned home, that is, tonight, I concluded the third contract in my room. There was no doubt about Luoluo's mood. The balance that had been maintained for many years was easily broken in just a week. Although after recovering his memory, Luoluo did not force Aika to go further with her, but such a half-hearted relationship could not last long. From the time they met until the incident at Tiburai Wangli Academy, Ling was struggling with the identity of his family, and Aika thought there was no need to worry about this now. Ling's feelings for her were conveyed through the mouth of the light flame sword, but she herself never showed that meaning. But after knowing the mask Ling is wearing, Aika will inevitably be a little concerned about her every move. What are you thinking about? Sorry, I don't know what the situation is now. A man who says such things is the worst kind of man. I know, I'm also thinking about how to deal with such a problem. Well. Senior Lilith walked beside Ika with her hands behind her back and did not continue what he said. There was a feeling of being teased by Senior Lilith, and Ika really didn't want to face such a problem. In that case, let me tell you about my past. Senior Lilith's past. Ika doesn't understand what the necessary relationship between that's the case and Lilith Senpai's past is. Ika-kun, do you remember when I told you that I wanted to become a national magician? Remember, Lilith Senpai was saved by the Justice Magician, so she wanted to follow the same path as him, right? That's right. I was only 11 or 12 years old at that time. I ran away from home because I was angry with my father and mother. Hey, running away from home is really not something that Senior Lilith would do. Senior Lilith's words mentioned her deceased father, who was still alive at that time. Right, Senior Sister Lilith shook her finger proudly for some reason, but now I am very grateful for that adventure, because it allowed me to find a goal that I can strive for. Reminiscing about her childhood, Senior Lilith was like a child excitedly telling about her big adventure. Unexpectedly, the mature and steady Senior Lilith had such a side. Ika was attracted by the profile of her face illuminated by the streetlight and moonlight. Where was it at that time? It seemed to be near the Wallen Mountains on the border of the empire, but it was actually a place without a name. Ika almost blurted out, "My hometown is near the Wallen Mountains." Below the Wallen Mountains is the first stop of Ika and Lolo's trip away from home, PFA Town. Because of her family's secrets, Ika didn't say anything, and just continued to listen to Senior Sister Lilith talk about her past naughtiness and stubbornness. My impression was that there were only mountains and forests around. The investigation team commanded by my father and mother did not agree to take me with them on the field investigation. As a result, I was unhappy at that time. Senior Lilith's father is a national magician. The head of the family is Senior Lilith's mother, Ms. Elise. The family business is based on the architectural design industry. Why did they bring you to the scene and not let you go with them? To be honest, I still don't know the reason, but now I can understand my family's intention of not letting me go with them. Senior Sister Lilith smiled with a red cheek. If it were me now, I would never do it again. Such a childish behavior. Then Senior Lilith will not meet the just magician. Yes, that's what the saying goes, there must be losses. After I ran out of the camp, I didn't even know the direction, so I just followed the mountain road that seemed like someone was walking up the mountain. Ika, who grew up in a mountain village since childhood, knows how difficult it is to walk on a mountain road that has not been opened by humans. An image of an urban girl, much smaller than the Senior Lilith in front of him, appeared in his mind, staggering on the mountain road. A smile appeared on Ika's face unconsciously. Well, you imagined it in your mind, right? Sorry, just listening to what you said. Don't imagine what I looked like when I was a child. Ika originally thought that Senior Lilith was immersed in memories, but she didn't expect that she was also paying attention to the changes in her expression. It seems that in Senior Lilith's perception, childhood ignorance is a shameful thing. Don't think that I'm not good at climbing mountains. I climbed to the top at that time. Oh. Ika-san doesn't seem to believe it. Because I can't climb to the top alone, so I can't experience that state. Really, hee. Ika knew that the peak in Senior Lilith's understanding should only be the rock wall extending from the mountainside. After all, Lilith Senpai's mobility in the wild was evident when we went to the forest outside Shigetsutsu Academy with her in the first grade. However, when she was a child, Senior Lilith might be in a completely opposite state to the eldest lady she is now, and she might even be more capable than a boy. This time, Ika paid attention to controlling her facial expression. After feeling satisfied with her small sense of pride, Senior Lilith gradually slowed down her pace. However, at that time, I must have been frightened by the monster that suddenly ran out from behind. When I retreated to the edge of the cliff, I accidentally stepped on the air. It was obviously a life-threatening situation, but Senior Lilith did not tremble all over because of the memory of the horror. Instead, she recounted the critical scene in front of Ika. When I was about to fall off the cliff, I grabbed the stone on the cliff without thinking. As a result, both hands and arms were scratched by the stone. The blood flowed along the arms and into the sleeves. It was so painful. The feeling can still be felt until now. Senior Lilith held down her left arm with her right hand. Maybe she just couldn't see the trembling under the sleeves of her spring uniform in this light. At that time, I was so stubborn that I didn't want to call for help. I just cried loudly. Thinking about it now, I still did things that wasted my energy at that moment. It's a miracle that I can still stand here like this. The unfolding picture of Senior Lilith gradually overlapped with the memory shrouded in fog in Ika's mind. Even though it was just a hazy picture, with every word that Senior Sister Lilith said, the lines in the picture gradually became clearer. However, crying loudly is also a way to ask for help. The Justice Magician was probably attracted by my crying and saved me when I was about to let go. When they were children, Ika and Luoluo searched for a long time on the mountain road in order to find the source of the crying, and finally thought that it might be on the edge of the cliff. Now I don't remember the method he used to save me. I only know that when he grabbed my arm, he happened to grab it on the bleeding wound. Maybe the Just Magician is not so gentle. The palms of her hands were slippery because of the blood that had not yet dried up. The girl's arms could not be grasped without strength. The tension of holding her breath to pull her up had already made me breathless. After I was rescued, my consciousness has been blurry. I probably lost too much blood. When I woke up again, all the injuries on my hands were healed. Although they were not bandaged, there were no scars left at all. The person who treated the lost girl was Luoluo. At that time, he didn't know magic at all, but he could only do what any strong person could do. The real magician is Luoluo, who can use healing magic since birth. There are two Just Magicians, and they are a brother and sister who are about the same age as me. They are a bit strange. After they sent me to the foot of the mountain, they were unwilling to go to the camp with me no matter what they said. It seemed that they were not used to interacting with outsiders. Communicate. Well, because our family has repeatedly told us to avoid contact with the outside world. Because it's the Kin's family. Apart from Ika had nothing to explain to Senior Lilith. Without even knowing it, she had connected a few years ago with the present. During the year that Ika spent with Senior Sister Lilith, she did not recognize that the first senior she met after entering Frost Moon Academy was the girl that he and Lolo had saved. From the beginning, she knew everything about him and he knew nothing about her. Senior Lilith, I'm sorry, I didn't remember it at all. The picture scroll that unfolded between the two people suddenly closed, and a breeze slowly flowed through the gap where time stood still. If I didn't think of my savior, then I should apologize. Senior Lilith raised her hand to hold her hair blown by the breeze. Her slender wrists exposed from her sleeves shone brightly in the moonlight. The shocking wound on her wrist was no longer visible, but instead, the eternal memory was engraved in Senior Lilith's mind. Their picture scroll ends at the end of the Academy path, which is the center of the garden that leads to all directions, where stone sculptures cast slender shadows in the moonlight. The Academy path extending from the administrator's cabin leads to the circular garden center, and 8 Academy paths in different directions extend from the garden center. Ika, maybe it's inappropriate to talk about this kind of thing now, or I'm talking to myself, but I want to rely on the courage temporarily borrowed from this memory to tell you. Senior Lilith, who was gracefully bathing in the moonlight, raised her hand to Ika, who was standing in the shadow of the sculpture, but did not extend her hand. A ring-shaped magic tool worn on the ring finger. The edged diamonds on it break down the bright moonlight into different primary colors. You have occupied most of my life. Before I met you again at Shigetsuki Academy, I just admired you. I asked myself several times, is this love, but it was not enough to be attributed to that kind of love emotion. Senior Lilith just showed him the ring that Ika accidentally put on the wrong finger, but she didn't expect him to hold her hand. After I met you again a year ago and found that you didn't remember me, I originally wanted to keep the past hidden and interact as ordinary friends, but when I noticed, I had relied too much on your help. I am completely attracted to you. That verbal engagement was also a product of this mood. Ika knew that Senior Lilith did not make the engagement with the intention of dealing with Ms. Elise casually, but she never imagined that there was such a heavy mood behind the agreement. Even so, her confession, or talking to herself, was not over yet. I still don't have the confidence to compete with them. The things they and I carry are completely different. He knew who the they that Senior Lilith was talking about didn't even have to think about it. Ika once wondered why Senior Lilith was so interested in them who had no contact with them. So, when I know that they already feel the same as me. If he continued speaking, his choked tone would make it difficult to maintain the status quo, so there was no follow-up to Lilith Senpai's words. The raised hand was quietly lowered, without waiting for Ika to even take a step. She turned sideways, and she could still see the twinkling tears from the side of her face, so this action was meaningless. So, what I want to say is, reorganize the interrupted words, that is, readjust the state of mind. Ika, I liked you. Her tone no longer had the choked tone it had a few seconds ago, but instead she took on a playful tone. This is the kind of playful tone that will never make you laugh after hearing it. And, thank you, Ika-san. At this point, Senior Lilith's first love that quietly sprouted but has not yet blossomed has come to an end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 307. Ika sent Senior Lilith back to the downstairs of the girls' dormitory. There was no sensational farewell hug, only a gentle farewell to each other. Walking home alone, Ika didn't think about anything. There are still people at home waiting for him to return, and Lanming is still tortured in August. Even if he throws these things out of his mind, he cannot think about it, and Ika simply chooses to kill time on the night road. The surveillance cameras in Shimizuki Academy may have recorded him wandering around the academy at night like a ghost, but no one would make irresponsible remarks about the students' night talk. Even if there is, I don't know it. Not knowing is equivalent to non-existence. I can walk home on a familiar road with my eyes closed. The wind blows the leaves, the river water hits the stone, but these sounds will not enter my mind. It actually feels wonderful to escape into your own world like this. It's just that when I came out of my own world, no problems were solved. The world is still functioning, but it is just a waste of your own time and the time of those who need you. I don't know how long I walked on the night road, but it seemed to be shorter than when I left, and I could already see the lights of the administrator's cabin. It's already the second day, and Ling hasn't slept yet. She was not wearing the woolen pajamas she had worn before going out, but changed into light strapless pajamas. It seemed that she had taken a shower again during this time. In front of Ling was a hot coffee for herself, and the entire hall was filled with a faint bitter taste and subtle aroma. Wei 11 has gone to bed. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Ling leaned against the back of the chair and met Ika's eyes. Luoluo has also gone back to the room, he should not be asleep yet. Thank you. When he was away, both of them must have been in a calm and soothing mood. Walking into a familiar environment, questions that had to be thought about came flooding in, and Ika only had the energy to say thank you to Ling. Is this distraught appearance because of Senior Lilith? Ling didn't serve Ika coffee, just ordinary cold water. Because there is no need to keep Ika up all night anymore. After you finish drinking, go to bed. She sat down opposite Ika again and drank the remaining brown liquid at the bottom of her cup. While holding the cup, Ling's eyes still stayed on Ika, until he also picked up the water cup and drank it in one gulp. Did you send Senior Lilith back to the girls' dormitory safely? If it were her in the past, the question would not be so simple, and Ika would have to think of a proper answer in advance. But this question is just as simple as good night, and the answer is very simple. Yeah. Ling's questions ended here, and then she took away her and Ika's cups and walked into the cooking room. The slight sound of water came immediately. Ika walked into the bathroom and took a shower casually. Although the cup of cold water just now is not as good as coffee, it actually has a refreshing effect. After coming out of the bathroom, Ling was still sitting in her original position, sliding her fingers across the PDA screen. Do not you go to sleep. I just drank something like that, how could I possibly sleep? But the effect won't last long. Oh. Ika also sat down at the spot where she left not long ago, and now the two of them were facing each other when they first entered the house. I said. Ling's eyes did not leave the PDA screen, but she did ask Ika, are you really ready to go? I want to find out. If Lan Ming is wronged, I want to help her. What can you do even if you go? It's a problem that even the princess can't solve, even if all of us put together are useless, right? That's why I said we need to find out August's situation first. Are you really planning to act in the name of your family? If necessary. Then I won't agree. Even if we don't hide it now, we are not using the family name as a convenient tool. Is it Ling's principle? In the name of the family, the meaning of this word is too different for herself and her. In Ika's view, family name is indeed just a title that suddenly fell from the sky, and it is more like a hot potato for now. I understand what you mean. This time I just want to help Lan Ming. You also know that she is not the kind of girl who will do whatever it takes, right? That's possible. Ling murmured softly, and coupled with the sound of chairs moving on the ground, Ika naturally didn't hear it. Ling couldn't completely trust someone she had only dated for a short time. At best, she just wanted to trust her. What's more, Lan Ming's status is that of a royal family, and the mask must accompany her throughout her life. She can understand this point as well. After you and senior sister Lilith left, Luoluo told me that she would go with you. If Luoluo just thinks she should listen to me, then I don't want to force her to do so. Ika deliberately lowered his voice so that even if Luoluo was hiding in the stairwell on the second floor, he wouldn't be able to hear what he said. I don't know what Luoluo thinks. Only you can change her thoughts. I'm also very tired, in every sense, anyway, I'm going to bed first. Well, let's not stay in bed tomorrow morning. Maybe everyone will skip class tomorrow, and then there will be rumors flying all over the class again. Maybe we can temporarily forget about these troublesome things now. Ling, who used to be troubled by unfounded rumors, now also makes such jokes casually. But Ika, who was usually good at making jokes to lighten the mood, found it difficult to laugh at the moment. Really spare me, I can't have the energy to deal with that kind of thing now. So now you lie down on the bed and count the black spots on the ceiling. You might fall asleep right away. Ika had heard of this home remedy to promote sleep when she was a child. Have you tried this method yourself? No, you can't see any black spots when you turn off the light, right? Don't you know this? Whether you count the numbers in your mind or not, it's not difficult to fall asleep in the darkness near the early hours of the morning. Ika temporarily equated the unanswerable question with the black spots on the ceiling, and after turning off the lights, she merged into the darkness. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 308. The originally scheduled lateness did not materialize, so Luoluo woke everyone up one by one early in the morning. None of the girls at the breakfast table looked like they had not slept well all night. They probably used special magic during the time when they were changing clothes. Like a lie, the tension from last night disappeared at this morning's dinner table. Luoluo also told Aika what Ling conveyed to him last night on the way to the classroom. Only Luoluo herself knew whether she was forcing herself or not, and her mood was always controlled to a level that would not be sensed by Aika. The short trip to the ruins did not attract the attention of the students in the twin classes, and the classes after the weekend continued as normal. It's just that Aika's mind is still not focused on the books at this time, she is just waiting for the free time between classes. Although Luoluo seemed to be paying attention to the lecture, her peripheral vision occasionally wandered away from the podium. Just like this, I would occasionally make eye contact with Aika, who was sitting next to me, and then look at the podium as if nothing had happened. As soon as the scheduled recess time arrived, Aika stood up and left his seat. None of the girls who knew what he was going to do stopped him. Aika, huh? Why did you disappear just after class? Chiuke had already learned from Senior Tilyuya that they were together on weekends, and he just wanted to gossip. Brother just said that his stomach felt a little uncomfortable. Oh, there are often people around me who feel this way recently. Ever since Moonlight Bath launched a new menu. New menu. Moonlight Bath has recruited several very creative freshmen. Recently, they often make things that are not on the menu. As the saying goes, new products always come with risks. It seems like they weren't here when we went last time. Sometime before exploring the ruins, Ling and Chiuke had lunch at the Moonlight Bath. Because it is a new product that will be launched only 1 or 2 weeks apart, if it was not advertised when we went there, someone must have been tricked. Even though it was food that might be bad for the stomach, the girls still had a lively discussion. In fact, Chiuke started the atmosphere. If this continues, the reputation of Moonlight Bath will decline. Compared with whether the new products can be successfully put on the counter, Wei 11 is more worried about the future of the restaurant, where she has received a lot of care. If you think about it carefully, there seem to be many embarrassing things. Humph, it's a limited product after all. No matter what it is, I'll buy it first. Well, this is taking advantage of customers' psychology. Don't be so realistic, Luoluo. So, Aika hasn't come back yet? I also want to know what happened to her and Xiaoyaya. Luoluo was startled by the sudden change of topic. The incident during the ruins exploration was asked by Principal Phyllis to keep it secret. Brother and Tairua-senpai? Nothing happened, right? Little Yaya said the same thing, but I always feel like there is something hidden from me. Of course, it is a topic that can only be confused in the past. By the way, Chiuke, the recent event organized by the discipline team and the student union. Ling induced the conversation to shift to work, and Wei 11, who relaxed, covered her mouth and let out a small yawn. While Luoluo was chatting, he was also thinking about Aika, who had not returned for a long time. After Ling and Chiuke began to exchange work, she quietly left the classroom. Aika left the classroom and walked to the stairs leading to the roof. Basically no one would come here. The girls like to eat lunch on the outdoor stairs, and it's still early lunchtime. Let me guess your purpose for coming to me. Do you want to know the circumstances of Princess Lanming's arrest? Liuyan, this matter should have spread throughout the Holy See by now, right? As expected, I think you would take the initiative to contact me probably for this kind of thing. I believe Lanming would not do the kind of thing reported in the news. She was indeed wronged, right? The emperor was assassinated in the Tiberai kingdom. Whether it was planned by Princess Lanming or not, there is currently no evidence. There should be no need for Lanming to assassinate the emperor specifically to inherit the throne. No matter how you think about it, it can only be a frame-up. But have you ever thought about it? Is it just your wishful thinking? That may indeed be the case, so I want to confirm with him directly. As Senior Lilith said, it's not that no one stands with Lanming, but that there is no evidence to vindicate Lan Ming. As far as the current situation is concerned, it should be impossible to meet Princess Lan Ming directly. Can't I see her in person even if I go to Augustus? Although the Senate gang said it was to be investigated, according to the Holy See's insider report, Princess Lan Ming has been imprisoned. Why? Haven't you been convicted yet? Whether she is convicted or not is determined by just one sentence. Now it is equivalent to the Senate to have determined that Princess Lan Ming has committed treason. The best result will only be life imprisonment. The worst outcome Liu Yin did not say was undoubtedly the death penalty. Once the guilt is publicly determined, the best outcomes can be even more brutal than the worst outcomes. Ika's mind flashed to the shining princess who put the country's priority on something more important than herself. He grew angrier inside him if she was going to spend her life in a dark prison because of an unwarranted conviction. Liu Yin, do you know where Lan Ming is being held? Of course it is impossible to know this kind of information. It is originally a sneaky behavior of the Senate. Conservatives are basically under surveillance, and the empire's internal affairs are now in chaos. In other words, the only people who can save her now are outsiders who have nothing to do with politics. Well, if you are now involved with Princess Lan Ming, I don't need to say that you will make many enemies. Xiao 11 will also follow you, right? Well, she has agreed. Are you going to drag her and your family into danger again? Liu Yin, the demise of Senchia Principality has nothing to do with Wei 11, right? Of course it has nothing to do with her. Wei 11 has told Liu Yin about the past she recalled, and it is no longer a secret. She only saved you in that war. Will you thank her or resent her? There is no need to ask this kind of question. Besides, does it have anything to do with you? Liu Yin was aroused by the question about Wei 11, and her tone towards Ika became rude. Perhaps in her heart, Wei 11 and her secrets were known to others, and she also developed feelings similar to jealousy. Now I want to repeat what Wei 11 did. To be honest, I don't care what happens to the country. As long as I can save the people I know, that's enough. Don't use Xioxi as your excuse. Sorry, it sounds like an excuse. I also need an excuse to accept it. Liu Yin's breathing could be vaguely heard on the other side of the PDA, but she stopped mocking Ika's rough determination. I can't expect Ling, Wei 11, and Luo to think that what I want to do is right, nor do I expect Lan Ming to thank me for saving her. At least I don't want to regret it in the future. I don't think your choice is right, but if they can't persuade you, my words won't have any effect either. Sorry, I know you will object to me. After all, I am still Wei 11's guardian, so I have hesitated for a long time since I was about to contact you last night. It's not just Xiao 11. The sound connecting from Shimazuki Academy to the sanctuary was covered in noise. Liu Yin, can you hear it? His Holiness the Pope has already thought that you will make a move. If you decide, come to the sanctuary. Is that what Thetis said? Humph, your contact with the Holy See is only through me, right? Coconut is here now. No wonder I haven't been able to contact Professor Coconut. Speaking of which, whether it is the Holy See or the Empire, everyone thinks that they are closely connected, but in fact, very few people can really connect with them. But there is one thing you need to figure out a solution for yourself. What? The Empire's entry and exit are now strictly monitored, and airships in neutral areas will definitely not be able to enter the Empire. Is this also affected by the incident? It's more just to prevent accidents, such as for people like you. Haha, I understand. I will contact you after this problem is solved. It may bother you for a while. This is not the first time. After finishing communicating with Liu Yin, Ika turned around and was about to leave, but was blocked by someone who unexpectedly appeared. Brad Rossi walked out of the shadow of the corridor and looked at Ika with a somewhat fierce look. He just stood leaning against the corridor, and this action also blocked Ika's only path. I'm sorry. I saw you walking here in the corridor, so I followed you here. Eavesdropping on other people's conversations is not something worth showing off to. Ika didn't force her way past him. What she just said had already been heard by Brad. Facing the son of the Fu family from the BZ Empire, he could only scold himself for being too careless. Are you planning to intervene in the third princess's case? What if it is? The Roxy family must be a famous family in the BZ Empire, but Ika knows too little about it. If their family stood opposite to Lan Ming, this would become a fatal mistake. Let me tell you first, Luo 11's family is still safe now. Senior sister Lilith and Liu Yan both said that the nobles who support Lan Ming have been monitored to varying degrees. Brad's well-intentioned explanation was just to express their family's position to Ika. Radical and conservative are just private terms for the factions, and these terms have not yet been put on the table. Are you deliberately eavesdropping for so long just to blackmail me? In fact, Ika has no ill intentions towards Brad, but she is just in a bad mood every time she sees him. This is not because of his relationship with Luo, Ika argued many times in his heart. Ika's slightly sharp words did not anger Brad, he just closed his eyes in front of Ika. I have said before that I don't care what happens to the family, and what happens to the third princess in the end has nothing to do with me. But I hope you don't run to the imperial capital with your head burning. Even if I decide to save Lan Ming in the end, it's definitely not because of my head fever. If Lan Ming can't prove it himself, we just need to find a way. Brad opened his eyes again, but this time there was obvious sarcasm in his eyes. I know that you have many connections in the imperial capital, but now it is the Senate that controls the country's situation. Do you think that with your status, you can move around the BZ Empire at will? I already know all this. Ika already has a rough plan in mind, but the initial problem has still not been solved. If you can't enter the BZ Empire, everything will be out of the question. So, after you said so much, do you just want to persuade me to stay in Xuanjiao Academy and wait for the outcome of Lan Ming's trial? Now is not the time to talk sense here. Ika's questioning revealed his inner anxiety. Brad was not setting him up, Ika could still see this. So he didn't plan to argue with Brad, but took steps to walk past Brad. Classmate Luo will definitely follow you, right? Brad did not give in to Ika. I don't ask you to do anything, at least don't take her to take such a risk. This cannot be solved by children playing house. Once the problem is involved, it is difficult to get out. Brad's growl was not a deterrent, but it still calmed Ika. Because this question directly hits the point where Ika is most troubled. He didn't want to involve the girls at home, and he just wanted to seek their approval by telling them his ideas. Probably because he was used to relying on their support in his heart. When Ling and Wei 11 said they wanted to go with him, Ika didn't say anything more. Luo later changed his mind, perhaps just out of helplessness. As long as the decision comes from her own mouth, there is no guarantee that she will accept it with her true intentions. Ika's troubles were directly reflected in her actions and expressions, which were all seen by Brad, who raised the corners of his mouth. Let's make a deal, classmate Ika. The Roxy family has asked me to return to the imperial capital tomorrow, and an aviation magic ship will pick me up by then. I can help you smuggle into the imperial capital, but you can't solve this problem. Question. This condition was timely, but Ika already knew the exchange he required. However, you can't bring Luo with you. She must stay in Shuyu Academy. No matter what happens to you, she can't leave. You need to convince her. This is an extremely tough condition, especially coming from a man who once pursued Luo. But that aside, Ika has no reason to condemn him. If it were him, he might ignore this emotion and forcefully demand Luo like this. Ling has the light flame sword and swordsmanship to arm himself, and his combat power is even higher than that of Ika, which is enough to ensure his own safety. Way 11 was the former Blue Knight of the Vatican, a magician who could stand side by side with Liu Yin, and she also had a firm reason not to leave Ika. Compared with Ling and Way 11, Luoluo's weakness is particularly obvious, which is Ika's excuse for not letting go. Even if her magical ability is higher than Ika can make up for this shortcoming by relying on the gap between Eyes of Fiery Flame and Heart of Orchid. Letting Luoluo stay in Chiyu Academy is exactly what Ika wants. Therefore, there is no reason to refuse the temptation offered by Brad. I know, I'm going to convince Luoluo to stay in Chuanjiu Academy. At this moment, a needle-like feeling flowed into Ika's heart. It was just a second, but it was as painful as a cold sharp thorn. On the contrary, you must ensure that we can enter the imperial capital. Ignoring this strange feeling, Ika continued to make an exchange with Brad. After Brad finished speaking his affirmative words, Ika rushed past him without even confirming. There was a strong contrast between Ika's calm attitude in negotiating just now, and Brad frowned. What's going on with this guy? When Ika passed by him, even his breath was filled with anxiety. Brad didn't stop Ika. Having said this, the negotiation between him and Ika has ended. Thinking of this as a negotiation is just due to the education of the Roxy family. In fact, it is just a simple transaction. Next. If Ika keeps his promise and convinces Luoluo, then he must fulfill the deal with him. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 309. Let's make a deal, Ika-san. Hearing this, Luoluo only had one thought in his mind. Don't promise him. Be sure not to agree to him. After leaving the classroom, she couldn't imagine where Ika would go to contact Liu Yin, but it must be a place that was not easy to find. Following habit, Luoluo walked to the rooftop where he usually eats lunch with his classmates. Before walking up one flight of stairs, the boy's voice could be heard faintly from upstairs. This narrow staircase is located in the corner of the corridor, and the sound of voices can be amplified by reflections from the walls. Luoluo was about to turn around and leave, but she could immediately distinguish one of the voices even if it was just vague. She walked lightly to a corner where she would not be noticed by the people upstairs. Their voices could be heard clearly. Then, she learned that Ika and Brad were hiding the deal they made without permission. I know, I'm going to convince Luoluo. At this moment, Luoluo's heart beat violently. At that time, she didn't notice that this was the outflow of her uncontrolled emotions. She simply escaped from the hiding place because she could not accept the decision that Ika made for her without authorization. Ika hurried back to the classroom, and was lectured by instructor Letica who passed by. He looked around his seat. Ling and Chiuke were talking about something, while Wei 11 was lying on the table with the sun shining in, sleeping with her arms on her pillow. Only Luoluo's seat is empty now. Ling, Chiuke, do you know where Luoluo went? You're back, Ling, who was struggling to find a topic to delay, finally breathed a sigh of relief. She seemed to have gone out just now. Didn't you say where you were going? Probably. What's wrong? Is there anything wrong with being so anxious? What happened? Ling originally wanted to say whether she would go to the bathroom, but Ika looked like she had something to hide. Chiuke didn't know why Ika rushed into the classroom out of breath. By chance, teacher Letica walked into the classroom at this time. We'll talk about it later. Ika could only sit back in her seat temporarily, wondering if Luoluo would be back soon. The heartache I felt just now could only be Luoluo's mood. The timing would have been too coincidental if it wasn't for hearing the conversation between himself and Brad. How to explain to Luoluo? Ika's thoughts were confused by a jumble of things, and she could only count the time to wait. As a result, Luoluo did not return to the classroom until the end of get out of class. After class, Ika asked instructor Letica. Did she take leave? I thought you should know since you live together. Thank you, teacher Letica. I learned from instructor Letica that Lolo used this reason to go home early. Aika sent a text message to her PDA but received no reply. Do you want to go back? That's all. I'll go back and take a look. After briefly explaining to Ling, Aika immediately left the school building. They originally wanted to go back together, but Aika asked them to have lunch at the moonlight bath first. If it was really as he thought, it would be better to face Lugo alone. After all, this was my own decision to make for Lugo, and explaining it to her was also part of my responsibility. Rushing back to the administrator's cabin from the school building, I felt the same time as last night. Seeing Lugo's shoes at the entrance, Aika stood there and took a breath. At least she got home safe and sound. No. I don't know if everything is safe or not. There was no one in the hall, and everything on the table remained in the same position as when they left it in the morning. Aika threw her bag on the table in the hall and walked upstairs without even taking off her uniform. I knocked on the door several times, but there was no response as usual. The door was locked as a matter of course, and you couldn't get in just by turning the handle. If it was just a simple physical discomfort, Lugo would not lock himself in the room at all. Aika could only give up the forced entry and knocked on the door again. Lugo, it's me, are you awake now? He couldn't knock gently, there was no point in doing otherwise. This level of knocking on the door will wake you up even if you are asleep. You heard it, right? I felt your mood at that time. I just want to explain it to you now. Can you open the door first? If she was really feeling unwell, Aika could only apologize afterwards. Rather than trivial matters like that, the first thing to do is to let Lugo listen to him. Surprisingly, just when Aika was about to knock for the second time, there was a click sound of unlocking the door. Aika withdrew her hand and the door in front of her opened from the inside. Lugo, still wearing his uniform, stood behind the door. His lowered eyes were not looking at Aika, but at the snow-white wall on one side. I'm sorry, brother, it's true that I don't feel well. She did not deny that she heard Aika and Brad's conversation. I don't know if it's because he was lying on the bed without changing out of his uniform, but his shirt is slightly wrinkled. Even though the long eyelashes covered her eyes, Aika had already guessed the reason why she had to do this through this covering behavior. Sorry, I will explain it to you carefully. Don't stand here yet. Lugo obediently turned around and returned to the room, leaving the door open to Aika. Her back looked a little tired. Aika hesitated to help her sit on the bed, but finally gave up. He sat on the chair in front of Lugo's desk. He had already thought about what things Lugo needed to know on the way back. Lugo, where did you start listening? When Brad-san put forward that condition. It was already the end of the conversation, so Aika first told Lugo the information Liuyan had conveyed to him. Lugo sat quietly by the bed, half listening. She still didn't look directly into Aika's eyes, so Aika didn't know her mood now. The condition Brad proposed, to be honest, I did take advantage of you. The biggest problem now is immigration, and the condition he proposed is not too harmful to us. Brother, do you think this doesn't matter? It wasn't until Lugo said such a brief sentence that Aika finally confirmed her mood. That was also the problem he needed to face head-on, how to make Lugo accept it and eliminate this suppressed dissatisfaction. Just let her accept, not understand. Aika believes that Lugo will not misunderstand his intentions. I don't want her to be in danger, I don't want her to be hurt. These words have become weak after experiencing so many events. For me, his request can just solve my problem, so I will accept it. If I don't use you as a bargaining chip, everything will be impossible, so I must apologize to you. And, just like senior sister Lilith, her parents asked her to stay at Shimizuki Academy. If she stays here. Brother, is it because I don't have the talents of Sister Ling and Xiao 11 that I'm so troubled? Aika was dumbfounded. He had indeed made such a comparison, but speaking to Lugo Lugo in person was too cruel. This is not a question of talent. Your magic is stronger than any of us, and you can also use healing magic. In terms of talent, you will not lose to anyone. But if you also take into account the support of magic equipment, it's a different matter. Aika was not trying to deal with Lugo Lugo, he really thought so he could say it with a clear conscience. If Orchid Heart can respond to Lugo Lugo, this balance can be broken immediately. But ever since it stopped the rampage of the Light Flame Sword, Orchid Heart fell into silence once again. Until now, no one knows what the true ability of Orchid Heart is. The magic costume my mother gave me was not a decoration, it was just because I rejected her. I know that without the Orchid Heart, there is no way to prevent Ling from being recaptured from the Light Flame Sword. But, why did you say that you rejected her? Aika always thought that Orchid Heart did not respond to Lugo Lugo's call, but Lugo Lugo said that the reason was himself. Lugo Lugo reached behind his neck and untied the necklace around his neck. The water blue teardrop-shaped gem flows with a color as blue as Lolo's long hair. Brother, you should have heard the name of Orchid Heart's ability. Only once, on the night when he stopped the Light Flame Sword, Aika heard Lolo say the words to activate the magic suit. After that, she never said the name of that ability again. Absolute royal power. Taken literally, this ability name exudes a very dangerous aura. Moreover, the atmosphere is completely opposite to Lugo Lugo's own personality. Well, is this the name of that ability? Orchid Heart told me in my heart. Lugo Lugo's way of explanation can only be understood by users of magic equipment. There is no specific way to use the magic equipment's ability, but you can understand everything about it very naturally from the bottom of your heart. Its ability is to force others to obey my orders. So at that time, she calmed down the Light Flame Sword with just one word. Even though it was only explained in a very simple way, Aika already understood the horror of this ability. Lugo Lugo's words are the king's words, and all subjects must obey them unconditionally. You can really just take it literally. It was obviously a very powerful ability, but Lugo Lugo's expression did not contain the slightest sense of pride, but seemed to be avoiding something taboo. I hate this ability. It's so weird to change other people's minds casually. Her tears overflowed with her trembling body, not only because of her disgust at the forbidden ability, but also because she was even afraid of her own ability. I don't know when it will happen. The people around me become what I imagined. Even if my mind has been changed, I won't notice it. She held Orchid Heart tightly in her hands, covering her face and crying. The silver hanging chain was stained with her tears and dripped from the curved bottom onto her legs. This kind of ability, I don't want it at all, I never said it out loud. If it's just an ordinary necklace, just throw it away when you can't accept it. But this is a gift given to me by my mother, and I can't let it go easily even if it is soaked in tears. The ability of Orchid Heart was already activated when I lost my memory. Because I wanted to escape from reality, I forgot everything except my brother's things. It was an attachment that could not be severed, a short week that was engraved in the memories of the two of them like poison. In that case, if I tell my brother that I want you to fall in love with me, it will become an order. Lugo Lugo raised his head. Since the tears have already been shed, there is no need to hide the red eyes. Even though this was a look she thought was unsightly, she couldn't get Aika's answer without looking into his eyes. Even if the answer was only superficially true, Lolo wanted to know. Brother, do you really like me? Aika finally understood that all Lugo Lugo's actions in Mistis were just to confirm this answer. Whether it was her excited expression in the intensive care unit, or coming to the boys' room late at night and calling herself to the deck to talk at night, it was all to conceal her true purpose. Lugo Lugo is also a fragile girl. Aika always forgets this unconsciously and takes her strength in front of him for granted. That night on the deck bathed in moonlight, Aika did not warm Lolo with a hug, but instead she smiled with relief. The smile that seemed incomprehensible at the time is now filled with helplessness and sadness. Very good. At that time, there was only the struggle in desire in her mind, and Ika only vaguely remembered what she said at that time. Since she wanted to prove whether her feelings were affected by the absolute royal power, all she had to do was do something she didn't want. At that time, I had already proved it to her with reason. So now, is she still pursuing this answer? No, this time is different from that time. There is no need to ponder her thoughts now. The so-called fragility is just a flaw that can be repaired with the cheapest adhesive. This is not to belittle her feelings, but to understand what she really needs. Perhaps, the current self should be grateful for the simplicity of the past. So now I can answer her question. Of course, not just worthless words, but showing her with actions. Show how much you cherish her and how much you value her. When they embraced their fragile bodies, their emotions were once again connected through the magical path. Heart-to-heart communication is transmitted to each other through the connected bodies. The cheapest adhesive is not worthless, everything has its own special value. But its value will only appear irresistible to those who need it. This afternoon, no one will come to the caretaker's cabin to disturb you. The relationship that had been questioned and fragmented in the past was finally repaired at this moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 310. Both of them were able to stay in the room during the afternoon subject-specific time. Professor Coconut is in the Holy See, and Lolo extended his vacation through tutor Letica. Afterwards, the two took a shower, made a simple lunch, and spent a leisurely afternoon. There are still many troublesome things waiting for Ika to solve, but now she only needs to consider Lululo's affairs. The aviation magic ship coming to pick up Brad will arrive tomorrow, and he will make his decision clear to his family and Senior Lilith tonight. This time, he was not going to ask for the consent of Principal Felice, but chose to go his own way. In fact, it's more that Principal Phyllis doesn't care much about this kind of thing. She has always been such a casual person. Brother, I want to talk to classmate Brad. What to talk about? I still want to go to the imperial capital with everyone. If I stay here, I won't be able to wait any longer. Besides, this ability can definitely help everyone. I no longer want to avoid this ability. Are you going to go alone? Ika knew that Lululo would definitely make this request at this time, and he did not intend to stop it too much. Brother has already made a promise to Brad, and it seems inappropriate to go back on it now, so I'll go alone. Lululo found various reasons, but in fact, she had already decided to go alone to convince Brad. While waiting for school to be over, Ika told Lululo his general plan. Although Lululo had some objections to Ika's recklessness, there seemed to be no better or faster way. If it goes as planned, the rescue of the princess will be half successful. I have already communicated with Brad via text message. He will be waiting for me in the classroom after the pharmacy department is over. Well, ask me again when you encounter something you can't decide by yourself. Speaking of which, yesterday I promised to pick up Ling after school. Is the place where Sister Ling has classes in the outer forest? There is a section of road in the middle that we can walk together. The two of them had been together all afternoon, and now they suddenly said they wanted to separate. For a while, they were still a little reluctant to leave. But this was only affected by the atmosphere at the moment, and both Ika and Lululo knew it well. Well, let's go out together. This kind of time will always come to an end. At least we can say goodbye temporarily under the sunset, which is also a good choice. After Ika and Lululo said goodbye in front of the pharmacy department building, they reminded themselves to get rid of distracting thoughts and walk towards the place agreed with Ling. Everything on Brad's side is left to Lugo. At least for Brad, Lugo's words carry more weight than his own. Walking through the intricate paths of the school, all the people who met us were students returning from school, which made Ika, who had just come out of home, feel a little ashamed. Walking from the administrator's hut to the outer forest where the assault section conducts practical training is equivalent to crossing the entire Shigetsuki Academy. Professor Kokina's laboratory is also nearby. We used to come here from the school building, which reduced the distance by nearly half. So Ika deliberately left twice as much time to go out today. On the way, I saw 3 girls walking out of the school building of the enchantment department with Way 11 from a distance, and Way 11 also noticed Ika. Those 3 girls must be her friends. One of them is Ronak, a classmate in the twin class, and there is an eldest lady who looks troublesome. The one next to her left a weaker impression. Way 11 said something to the 3 of them, and then trotted towards Ika. "Brother Ika. Sorry, it was Lugo who was supposed to pick you up, but she is in a hurry now." "No way." Way 11 shook her head vigorously and tried her best to deny, "I didn't expect to meet you here." For some reason, Way 11 seemed very excited about the chance encounter on the road. The long pure white hair hanging down on both sides danced slightly like lop ears, and Ika unconsciously reached out and touched her hair. She looked up at the girls waiting for her not far away. Ronak was waving to Ika, looking like he was teasing her. The girl who looked like a young lady seemed to be biting her fingers impatiently. It was too far away to see clearly, but they couldn't be kept waiting forever. "Are you going to a moon bath for dinner?" "No. Classmate Annabelle invited me to their dormitory. Over there in the girls' dormitory. When the time comes, Lugo or Ling will be asked to pick her up, but now he hasn't said anything." If Way 11 was told to come back early in the evening and have something to say, she would definitely not be in the mood to enjoy time with her friends. The person Ika is most worried about not being able to make friends with is Way 11. Now that the situation has finally improved, Ika certainly hopes to continue to develop. "Brother Ika, have you contacted Xiaoan?" "Well, I contacted you while you were sleeping in the classroom." "Ugh, I thought Brother Ika didn't see it." "You can sit in front of me and you can see me when you get back to the classroom." Ika patted Way 11's little head gently. "Go, they are still waiting for you." Looking up again, Ronak was cheering even more. The girl who wasn't impressed seemed to be trying to persuade the girl who looked like a young lady to calm down. What's going on with this small group of girls? Their personalities seem to be totally incompatible. Way 11 ran back with a bang, and the girl who looked like a young lady seemed to be bullying her. Ika turned around and saw that there was probably a world that she couldn't understand. I looked at the time displayed on the PDA and found it was already a little later than agreed. Oops. I checked my mailbox and didn't receive any text messages urging me to do so. On the contrary, it's even more terrifying. Accepting the reality with a wry smile, Ika put the PDA into the pocket of her uniform and quickened her pace. The assault section of Shimizuki Academy has an enclosure specifically for training combat skills in the surrounding forest, but it is still within the surveillance range of the large barrier. The 4th level of monsters will not appear once every few years, and the 3rd level of monsters will occasionally break in. It is such an area that wanders on the edge of danger. There is a large building specifically for students to prepare outside the training area. It is said that there is a shower inside, because the students do not want to face the sweaty time after school. Except for the initial choice of specialization subjects, after everyone and Ling visited the area twice, they basically never came here again. Ika came to the agreed flower bed. Since there is only one flower bed of this color nearby, it was easy to find it. "Ling, I'm here to pick you up." "Sorry, I bumped into Way 11 on the way, so I'm a few minutes late." "It doesn't matter. It seems to be the current male style to make women wait. I learned something good. I forgive you." Ling, who was sitting by the flower bed, said generous words with a smile on her face, which sounded like candy in front of a whip. However, Ika and Ling have been together for so long, and there is really no sign that she is angry. Where did you hear this kind of knowledge? I was late, so it's my fault and I admit it, so I'm really sorry. Okay, I understand. I just don't want to waste time on this kind of topic, so I forgive you. Why do you keep apologizing? Ling put away the forced smile, patted her skirt and stood up from the bench in front of the flower bed, folded the doily and put it into her carry-on bag. Her long blonde hair fluttered as she stood up, emitting a shampoo scent that was different from the scent of flowers. Take a closer look at her uniform, which is also spotless and neat. Did you just take a shower? The movements in Ling's hands stopped for a moment, and then she lifted up the bag that looked like it couldn't hold a change of clothes at all. The assault course ended very early, and everyone went back after taking a shower. Ling pouted, but her cheeks turned red as she answered Ika's question. Oh, is it so? Do you think I did this specifically to wait for you? No, I've never said that. That's good. I won't forgive you if you have weird fantasies. Ika really didn't know how much of her words were sincere. Leave now. Oh, She responded to Ika awkwardly and took a slightly hesitant step. Ling held her bag behind her back with both hands and walked beside Ika. This was the first time I came to take Ling home, but the atmosphere was not as warm as expected. If there wasn't such an emphasis on the background, the relationship between Ika and Ling would be more natural. I said, "Are we too stiff?" Ika unconsciously began to pay attention to whether her arms and legs were swinging in the same direction. Wouldn't it be better to imagine that we are shopping? Then let's talk about something. What to talk about? By the way, Wei 11 went to the girls' dormitory for dinner tonight. Could you please pick her up later? Why do you have to mention Wei 11's matter? Ling finished losing his temper at Ika angrily, then turned away, although it's okay to say it's okay. You also know that I'm actually very bad at chatting. Because your head is made of wood. Really, you really don't have any strengths except energy. What do you mean by besides energy? My advantages are things that ordinary people cannot observe. Okay, I'm just an ordinary person. Although it was just a boring conversation, it also eased the slightly stiff atmosphere between the two. Ling, you used the light flame sword in the ruins, right? Did you feel different at that time than usual? If you are talking about the personality in the light flame sword, it has never come out again. It is basically still the same as before. I was wondering why my magic costume never appeared. Eye of Fiery Flame. Ling naturally raised Ika's wrist and looked at the wrist wheel that shone with silver light in the sunset. She herself didn't seem to care about this action, but the one who cared about it was the passive Ika. That's right, my light flame sword and Luoluo's orchid heart seem to have spoken, but yours haven't responded yet. I think it's not just your magic costume that's a special case. Maybe I need some opportunity. Opportunity, Ling's statement was not impossible. By the way, what is your opportunity? Is it my opportunity? Ling's voice suddenly became much softer. It must have been that time when I was in coma for a long time, and the sword of light came out through my body. To be honest, even though I already felt something was wrong at that time, I didn't expect that the consciousness was not my own. Don't mention that matter again. All the problems that should be solved in that incident have been solved, and Ling, who was the central figure in the incident, also felt very embarrassed. Well, I contacted Liuyan this morning. I didn't have time to tell you because I was looking for Luoluo. I saw your text message. Is it okay now for Luoluo? Well, she's going to the pharmacy department now to see Brad. Brad? Is he the boy who confessed to Lolo before? He can help us smuggle into the BZ Empire, but Luoluo is required to stay at Frost Moon Academy. This exchange condition seems completely disproportionate. Smuggling was against the laws of the empire, and Ling couldn't imagine how the two things were equated. That guy liked Lugo Lugo. He probably didn't want the girl he liked to be in danger. Speaking of which, you were like this in the beginning, so it's understandable. What does it have to do with me? When we didn't know each other for a long time, wasn't the thing you said most often, if there's danger, don't follow me? Ling imitated Aika's tone of voice, but it was completely different. I said that, at least no boy would be willing to watch a girl take risks, right? I know I'm taking care of my family. Ling blocked what Aika was going to say next, but haven't you ever felt a little different? What's the meaning? Aika didn't know what to answer to the ambiguous question raised by Ling. As you just said, boys don't want the girls they like to take risks. This feeling is different from taking care of family members, right? How do I know this? Aika has never been so passionate about a girl she likes, so naturally she has no personal experience. But you. Ling seemed to have said a bit too much today. You should have someone you like, right? Someone different from family members. Aika is not too dull to detect this kind of induced inquiry. Then I will ask you this question. You answer my question first. Ling did not dismiss Aika's question, but she also did not make any answer. Actually, there is an issue that I have been very concerned about before. Although you may not want to mention it, I still want to make sure. Sorry, I don't answer any personal questions. Ling quickened his pace, but Aika had no trouble keeping up. When the magic sword went berserk before, she said it would be painful for you to stay by my side. Is that true? Didn't I say that I can't even answer personal emotional questions? This is of the same nature as not wanting to put your family in danger. I also want to know whether what she said is true. Before Aika could say anything, the only thing left was the confession made by the light flame sword on Ling's behalf. If the confession was really brought up now, Ling would have no way out. On the contrary, the stiff atmosphere between them will return to the previous one, or even worse. So what? What can you do? Ling stopped, and while shouting at Aika, tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. She knew everything the light flame sword had done, and she also knew Aika's purpose in pursuing her. I like you. We are not blood-related family members. Is this normal? At the beginning, you always found various excuses to deal with me. Now you seem to be a different person and cling to me. You should also consider my feelings. Because after the light flame sword said those words, I started to care. If it were you, you would definitely not say it in 10 years. Didn't I say it before, but you used "we'll talk about it later" to get rid of it. In such a remote place, there are no other students around, so Ling venting his feelings to Aika will not cause rumors. Not sure if he was finally tired, Ling silently walked forward again. Of course, Aika couldn't continue to stand where he was. Was that a confession just now? I guess, but it seems a bit too casual. If I have to describe it, it's like it has already become an established fact, and now I'm just saying hello again. Ling, I know how you feel. Is this why the light flame sword said that you would become miserable if you stay by my side? I said not to care about what the light flame sword said. At that time, the light flame sword and I occupied my body just to let you know about this. After telling the most important thing, other details seemed to be unimportant to Ling. Aika still remembers the conflict between the magic power of Ling and the light flame sword, which led to the final magic rampage. However, there shouldn't be anything you like about me, right? Just now you said that I am nothing but. Why do you remember it so clearly? You don't need to be so clear about what you like, right? You fell in love with it the moment you noticed it? Yeah. If you say this, Aika has no reason to refute. The pace of the two of them was still at the original speed, and the pace that Ling had speeded up to hide her shyness had now slowed down. Have Luo and Wei 11 said it? That's what they said. They should have said it before me, right? Ling plucked up the courage to make an agreement with them, but she was the only one who didn't take the step forward. If Ika hadn't been chasing after her today, I don't know when this feeling would have been conveyed to him. Well, I may have said something similar. Have you answered everything? Not yet, at least for now. Are you going to say that you'll think about it after you settle down? That's not what I meant. I admit it's my own problem, anyway. I'm really happy to know how you feel today. Scumbag. The light flame sword also used Ling's body to condemn Ika in this way, and now she said it in person, making Ika feel like a lump in her throat. I will give an answer after Lan Ming's problem is solved. Did you decide so rashly? No matter if I can answer or not, you are still going to hurt me. Humph. Ling never let go of her condescending tone in order to cover up her shyness. It's been a year, and you should have adapted by now. The purple swallowtail headband Ika bought for her as a birthday gift has become a part of her. At that time, Ika didn't know Ling's preferences, but now she thinks she can understand part of her. As for why I said I only understood part of it? Let's agree first, don't tell Luo and Wei 11 about this. As he was about to reach the door of the administrator's cabin, Ling suddenly turned around and told Ika, even if I say those words, I won't. There will be the changes you expected. So, it's still the same as before, you know. In the end, you went out of your way to tell me something like this. It's really your style. I want you to take care of. That's because this heavy book called Girls is always filled with new chapters, so she can never be fully read. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 311. That night, Senior Lilith, who received the text message, and Brad, who was brought back by Lolo, gathered at the administrator's cabin. Ika first explained his plan to everyone. To sum up, Lan Ming was brought out of prison and then returned to Shiyu Academy. It's very simple. Do you think it can be so easy to leave the BZ Empire with the third princess? Brad has always had a gloomy look on his face since arriving at the caretaker's cabin. But according to Luo, he didn't seem like this before he got here. If Luo insists on going with you, I won't bother to say anything more. If something happens to her, just wait for me. As soon as Brad entered the door, he dropped harsh words on Ika. But judging from the result, he agreed to go with Luo. It's just that Ika didn't know what conditions Luo negotiated with him before he allowed this stubborn guy to accept it. Although he didn't ask directly on the surface, Ika was still a little concerned in his heart. After we get to the imperial capital, there should be people who can help us. We'll consider the specific plans after we get there. A thorough action plan cannot be formulated in these 2 days. Ika still couldn't completely regard Brad as a companion, so the existence of the Holy See was vaguely passed on. But the most important thing is, you don't know where the third princess is being held now, right? Isn't the imperial capital the most likely place? Ling still remembered the incident she had heard about when she asked Ika to accompany Luo, who had lost his memory, to the imperial capital. That prison, has this kind of thing happened before? You mean the Theban prison? Yes, there seems to have been a big commotion there. The news is indeed talking about a prison robbery, so the security at the prison must be stricter now. Prison robbery is simple to say, but it is not easy to implement. The only thing that could allow Ika to maintain her negligible self-confidence was the magic costume, and she had managed to break out of the many crises she had encountered in the past through recklessness. But now the enemy has become a country, and the opponent may be just an ordinary imperial soldier, or it may be an imperial knight who can compete with the mentors. If you meet a knight, it will be very troublesome. There should be knights guarding the prison. Ling directly faced the imperial knight in the August arena. In that battle, the opponent did not even use magic equipment and was able to suppress her in terms of strength. Recalling the shadow at that time, Ling rarely said anything that showed weakness. I don't think the third princess is in August. Brad put forward a different view. Generally speaking, places where important people are imprisoned are not placed in the center of the empire. Why? Wouldn't it be easier to monitor it in the imperial capital? That's why people who want to rob the prison rush directly to the imperial capital. Those big shots don't like to be harassed every day in their territory. Brad glanced at Ica with ulterior motives, intending to indicate that he was one of those people who went directly to the imperial capital. If we're not in the imperial capital, there's nothing we can do. We have to go to the imperial capital first. No matter what the purpose of the Holy See was, Ica still chose to believe Liu Yan and made an agreement with her. If the Holy See can provide a way to break the status quo, it will become an extremely solid backing. The discussion seems to be back to square one now. Can I interject a word? Senior Lilith, do you have any ideas? After Lolo spoke, Brad could only temporarily stop the endless argument with Ica. Until just now, Senior Sister Lilith had only listened carefully to everyone's discussion and had not expressed her own thoughts. Her family asked her to stay at Frost Moon Academy to seek asylum, and her family was not threatened by the incident. It can be said that the environment was ideal. Ica asked Senior Lilith to come here too. Because she took the initiative to contact everyone, Ica would not exclude her from the discussion. If I return home now, I should be able to find out the current location of the third princess. Going home means, Senior Lilith, are you ready to participate in their plan? Brad, who is also a noble, understood the seriousness from Senior Sister Lilith's words. Your Excellency Lilith, although your family is not a surnamed family, it still plays an important role in the empire. Any actions you take will directly affect the family. I am already doing this kind of thing against the family's resolution. Senior Sister Lilith smiled. Brad didn't know the inside story of Senior Lilith's family, so he couldn't understand what she said. The only people who can understand this sentence are the 4 people who formed an indissoluble bond with Senior Lilith last year. If I were to return home and re-enter politics, my family would be happy to accept this outcome. But, isn't this what Senior Lilith wants to do? Ling doesn't want others to change their lives for her own sake. If you do this, will you really not regret it in the future? Ica also wanted to say something, but when she thought of her farewell to Senior Lilith last night, it became difficult to say anything. Rejecting Senior Lilith's determination here seems to be rejecting her once again. But Senior Lilith didn't force her smile. She also made the decision after thinking carefully for a day. If this is the only time, I can overcome it if I work hard. Senior Lilith, thank you. But please don't force yourself. At most, you only need to find Lan Ming's location. We will solve the other troubles. On behalf of the 3 members of the family, Ica expressed sincere gratitude to Senior Lilith and accepted her help. In the following time, Brad began to arrange a stowaway plan for Ica and the others tomorrow. This was the purpose of his coming here tonight. The Roxy family's aviation-guided ship landed at Shimatsuki Academy's dedicated airport, and the entire preparation process took nearly an hour. The aviation magic ship needs to be carefully repaired after each long-distance voyage. Shimazuki Academy can provide services for a fee based on the agreement. The maintenance work is carried out jointly by the accompanying technicians and the technicians from the Academy maintenance class, and the positions of both parties are equal. After putting on the blue uniforms of the maintenance team, they all blended into the team of the maintenance team perfectly. There are also trainees from the equipment department and logistics department in the maintenance class, so they are not unusual in the eyes of the imperial people because they are too young. Hey, some students over there, go clean the tail turbine and adjust it where necessary. I understand, Master Frenchie. Ica responded loudly to the unfamiliar instructor in the roaring warehouse, and then led the girls to the location of the turbine that was already known in advance. At last night's discussion meeting, Brad had already told them all the positions everyone needed to know on the aviation magic ship. Are those students reliable? Trainees can't handle things like aviation guided ships. You can always do things like cleaning the turbine, right? Don't stand here and disturb my work. Are all you pampered magic technicians doing nothing? Instructor Florence responded with the same aggressive tone to the arrogant young technician from the Empire. Huh, they can only do such inconspicuous things. The young technicians who were scolded muttered to themselves and returned to work. They probably would no longer pay attention to those students. Instructor Francis had a personal relationship with Brad, and Brad asked him to direct today's preparation work. They couldn't make any adjustments to Ica that wasn't part of their specialty, so Brad suggested they do some odd jobs to disguise themselves as trainee technicians. In order to prevent his own people from interfering with Ica's actions, Brad will also supervise the work of his subordinates in the warehouse. Based on the information provided by Brad last night, Ica found the turbine located deep in the channel. Unless you use a platform controlled by a robotic arm to get here, there is no way to reach the depths. The passage door Brad mentioned is here, right? Do you want to go in from here? Looking at the huge turbine lit only by lights, Way 11 was a little intimidated. Brad said that it is only when there is remediation that all the floodgates open at the same time. There is also a gate inside the turbine that can be connected to the ship to serve as a passage during assembly and disassembly. You guys go up first, and I'll move the robotic arm back. If the robotic arm platform is left in an uninhabited depth, it will inevitably arouse unnecessary suspicion. Ling stepped on the metal iron plate first, followed by Luoluo, and finally Ling caught Way 11, who closed her eyes and mustered up the courage to jump over. Finally, Ica operated the platform control panel, and the robotic arm began to slowly retract, and Ica jumped over before the distance gradually widened. When it landed, it made a loud noise in the open deep ditch, but it was immediately overshadowed by other mechanical noises. Walking sideways through the layers of steel fan blades, they arrived at the deep gate. It is indeed as Brad said that it can be opened freely from the inside and outside. Behind the gate were horizontal and straight upward tube passages, and they climbed the upward stairs as Brad requested. The work clothes of the maintenance class are slightly baggy pants, so there is no need to worry about climbing such stairs. Is the fifth gate that Brad mentioned the fifth gate from the top? If there's no special mark on the door, that's probably it. Ica, who was at the end, answered her question in a low voice. In fact, inside the aviation magic ship, the mechanical noise outside has been completely blocked, and they can clearly hear each other's voices. Initially, Ica was supposed to take the lead in climbing the stairs, but because he was worried that Luoluo and Way 11 would fall behind, he walked last. Speed up, it's honestly difficult to climb this kind of stairs. After climbing up for a while, Ling saw the first gate on the platform next to the stairs. With the help of the lights on both sides of the passage, she didn't see any obvious markings on the gate. It looks like it should be the fifth gate from the top. It shouldn't take long to get there. Actually, you shouldn't have to worry about us. Way 11 knew the intention of Ica and Ling's arrangement, which made her a little embarrassed about receiving special attention. Luoluo knew that the two of them would definitely be overprotective, and all she could do was accept it gratefully. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 312. The fifth gate in the cabin is connected to the storage compartment at the rear of the aviation guided ship. This room and the large molecular power furnace in the middle form a load-bearing complement. Ica used the PDA's lighting function to walk into the darkness, and then walked out after a while. Like Brad said, these are all containers, so it's a good hiding place. Suddenly, the lights came on in the dark room. Luoluo quickly turned around, and there was only Ling standing there. Don't be nervous, it's just that there happens to be a switch here. There is a switch on the left side of Lingjin's door. After pulling it down, All the lights on the ceiling of this room are turned on. Don't touch anything in here. Don't worry about it. I asked Brad before I came here. This room will only react to situations like fire. You guys should get familiar with the environment here first, and then turn off the lights later. Now the layout of the room can be seen clearly without the help of PDA lighting. The stacked containers are taller than 2 Ikas, and the steel cubes form a simple maze in this room. Ika and Ling walked in the front, followed closely by Luoluo and Wei 11. After walking for a distance in the aisle that could accommodate 2 people side by side, everyone returned to the starting point. After closing the light switch, only the PDA's light flashed in the darkness. Should we just wait here until the BZ Empire? Ling roughly remembered the location of the containers. Brad said that usually no one will come. If someone comes, it's convenient to hide here, but I still want a safer way. It takes at least half a day from here to the BZ Empire. If something goes wrong on the way, it will be troublesome. No matter what happens, no one can be discovered, otherwise even Brad will not be able to ensure their safety. Moreover, after the aviation magic ship takes off, any combat behavior may lead to a crash, which is an outcome that neither side is willing to happen. It shouldn't be possible to break the door lock in the connecting cabin. It's too unnatural. It seems that the container can't be opened from the side. If you damage anything here casually, it may trigger an alarm. You'd better not count on the container. Ling could easily cut open the iron plate, but she had never thought of it. Everyone fell silent, and at this time, the faintest noises in the warehouse outside could be heard again. It is probably because the maintenance work has reached the tail wing, and the 1-hour supply is conservatively estimated to be nearing completion. I can give it a try. What do you want to try, Xiao 11? I can create a barrier that doesn't want people to come close. But if you use this method, you have to persist for the entire voyage, right? Ika immediately pointed out something Wei 11 didn't mention. The essence of barrier magic is space displacement. If you want to maintain a space, you must always control the output of magic power. Although everyone now knows that Wei 11's other identity is a magic suit, it is still unbearable for her to maintain the output of magic power for most of the day. And the most important thing is, can magic be used here? Ling also hesitated at Wei 11's suggestion. We can't feel that you are a magic costume, and other people with magic costumes shouldn't feel it either, but just the fluctuations in magic power are obvious. In addition to the accompanying magic technicians, there are also national magicians from the Roxy family and their subordinates on this aviation magic ship. If abnormal magic power fluctuations are transmitted from within the ship, both the magician himself and the magic instrument that detects magic power ripples will be able to sense it. It's not like that. A set-up barrier is very similar to a field, except it doesn't change the surrounding environment. You can also chat with everyone like this. I can do it as long as I'm here. Ika also knew that there was no need to consider too much now. The aviation magic ship was about to take off, and it would be difficult to make small moves by then. If Wei 11 didn't have to concentrate all the time to maintain the output of magic power, he would feel more or less comfortable. Before that, use the Kang phosphorus bird cage to prevent the magic power from leaking out. It should be fine. Just don't force yourself. I may not be able to carry you out after we get to the imperial capital. It won't be like that. Wei 11's expression couldn't be clearly seen under the light source of the PDA. All he knew was that she walked away from where she was. It takes a while. Please wait for me. We're all here and we're not going anywhere. Xiao 11, would it be better if you turned on the light? No need, actually, I'm not thinking about this. Wei 11 took a few steps, but still held the lighted PDA in her hand and did not put it away. If the only light source that illuminated her surroundings went out, she would still feel uneasy. She doesn't want her family to worry about her, but to do this she must overcome the threshold in her heart. That's why Ika once said categorically that no matter whether Way 11 was invincible on the battlefield or not, she was just a young girl now. I am the master. It should be beneficial to be closer to you, right? When the word master came out of his mouth, Ika realized that he was so ashamed. At that time, Ika didn't know what kind of mood Way 11 had in calling herself that way, but now she only remembers her shy expression. Eh? What do you want to do? The sound of Ika approaching made Way 11's voice become more panicked, which didn't seem to have any positive effect. He just put his hands on Way 11's shoulders, and his palms were immediately filled with a warm feeling. Not doing anything, that's all. The contract signed by Ika and Way 11 is invisible, literally invisible. Unlike the mechanical alchemy of the fiery eyes, one can immediately understand its ability in the heart. Way 11's abilities, as well as her thoughts and feelings, have never been felt by Ika since the contract was signed. He didn't know if this was because of the restriction of blood relationship. In just one day, he didn't have time to ask Way 11. However, when she kissed him on the cheek and his whole body was wrapped in magic as white as her hair, that moment had indeed connected the two of them. Way 11 said nothing in these few seconds, but tightly put the extinguished PDA back into the pocket of her uniform. Ika didn't turn on the PDA's lighting because she was supporting Way 11 with both hands. The pale light spread out from Way 11's side, filling this huge space like thin smoke. The pale birdcage no longer maintains the shape of a magic barrier, but instead scatters flickering magic particles to every corner of the room. Even if there is a monitor with magic ripples here, it is useless at this moment. When Way 11 just followed Ika to get familiar with the environment, she roughly knew the scope of this room. Opposing magic circles appeared on the ground beneath her feet and on the ceiling above her head, slowly rotating, peeling off, and attracting each other. Until the two opposite magic arrays overlapped and turned into pure white particles intertwined with pale phosphorus particles, gradually and quietly dissipated. It's okay, brother Ika, you can let me go. Well, wait a minute. Ika freed up a hand to open her PDA and illuminated Way 11's feet before letting go of her shoulder. This kind of barrier is just a simple hint, if they have something to come here for, they will still come in. That's enough. As long as we stay here honestly, we should be able to hide until we land. Then find a place to sit. That's right. Let's spend these few hours chatting. Just as Ika and Ling turned around to find a place where they could sit down and have a good rest, Luoluo grabbed his clothes. Brother, later, I want to tell everyone that. Well, there is no need to hide anything in the first place. Just say it when you want to. Yesterday, although Luoluo never talked about absolute royal power again and did not specifically explain it at the evening discussion, it did not mean that she did not care. Ling, who had not gone far, also heard what Luoluo said to Ika. She had already known the ability of Orchid Heart through that night when she competed with the Light Flame Sword for body dominance. Regarding this, she just felt that I can finally speak out. Way 11 beside Luoluo didn't know what Luoluo wanted to tell everyone, so she just waited in confusion. A few minutes later, when Way 11 learned about Orchid Heart's true ability, she just marveled in a low voice. During the few hours of this smooth sailing, the forbidden ability explained by Luoluo did not cause much alarm, and he was immediately taken away by the next topic. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 313. On the afternoon of the day when the Rashi family's aviation guided ship left Shimizuki Academy, the aviation guided ship that came to welcome Lilith back to the imperial capital also arrived on time. Lilith's housekeeper and maid, Klaus and Sarit, traveled together on the aviation magic ship. Miss Lilith, Mrs. Elise is actually very dissatisfied with your request. I hope you can explain it to Ms. Elise well after you get home. Sarah said this when she saw Lilith. She was conveying a message from the head of the family, Ms. Elise. I understand. It's natural for mother to be angry. She obviously hopes that I can support the family business in the future, but now she wants me to hide here. Isn't it completely unreasonable? Miss Lilith should know the real reason why Ms. Elise is angry better than us, right? Although Klaus didn't say it clearly, he was actually hinting at the reason why Lilith suddenly changed her original intention. Ms. Elise is not opposed to Lilith entering the political circle. At her current age, she is already enough to represent the side of the family that occupies the palace. But if the intention is to participate in something that is inconsistent with the ideals of the ruling party, this will only put the family's position in a precarious position. Mother, you think that it is more dangerous for me to stay in Shimizuki Academy than at home, so you will allow me to go home, right? Maybe this is indeed Madame Elise's consideration. Sarah replied respectfully. This business-like attitude had already given Lilith a sense of crisis. If he cannot convince Ms. Elise, then he will not be able to leave the mansion after returning home. Lilith never thought that in addition to her own future, she would have disagreements with her family over other people's affairs. The mother and daughter reunited after a long separation did not exchange warm greetings. There was only a tense atmosphere between them as when the original conflict was not resolved. Is this the reason why you are willing to throw away the future you have worked so hard for and come back to argue with me? I just don't want to regret it in the future. I just don't want to repeat your current mood, mother. This is the past that only Lilith knows. In fact, she is unwilling to mention the past that made her mother sad. But only by letting Ms. Elise recall this feeling can we understand what kind of consciousness Lilith had when she said this. Ms. Elise was momentarily touched by Lilith's words, but she just frowned. After a long time, the frown on her eyebrows relaxed, and Ms. Elise let out a long sigh. You are much more eloquent than before. Because I know that if I don't do this, I will never be able to convince my mother. Lilith smiled back at Ms. Elise. This slightly ironic compliment sounded to Lilith as an endorsement of herself. When Lilith first left home to attend Frost Moon Academy, she never got rid of the idea of a pampered young lady. In the face of Ms. Elise's opposition, Lilith just flaunted the correctness of her ideals, but she did not get Ms. Elise's recognition for 2 years. It wasn't until Aika and the others suddenly turned in that Lilith learned to look for a breakthrough from the side. If you can't get the other party's approval, let the other party have to approve it. Even if it is a reckless theory in the style of Aika, it can still work as long as you are willing to put it into action. I only have one request for you. Ms. Elise looked at Lilith no longer as the head of the family, but just as a mother. Don't let me regret tonight's decision in the future. Lady Elise borrows Lilith's sophistry and agrees with Lilith to do as she likes. At this point in the conversation, Ms. Elise did not stand up from the sofa, which meant that it was not over yet. One more thing, will the Kins family and the Heinz family also take action? Lilith knew that her actions could not be hidden from her mother, who led the family. If you were to ask yourself, who is apolitical, why he was so active in this incident, he could immediately relate it to them. I don't know exactly what they think. I just want to know what I want to know. Just wondering. Yes, as long as you know it, you can let me stay at home or return to Shiyu Academy. This is the biggest concession that Ms. Elise can make. If she participates in the rescue of the third princess, it will inevitably cause unpredictable losses to the family. Ms. Elise closed her eyes and meditated for a while Lilith just sat in her seat and waited for her mother's last words. Tomorrow I will ask Klaus and Sarah to tell you the time of the recent social events, and the invitation will be sent to you in the name of the family. After several hours of traveling and the conversation with Ms. Elise, Lilith returned to her room and lay directly on the bed. This appearance is very unsightly for the eldest lady of a noble family, but in her personal space she will no longer care about such trivial matters. Are you going tomorrow? 3 years ago, 13-year-old Lilith attended a noble social dance for the last time, and then she escaped into Frost Moon Academy when she was tired of the atmosphere. Now that I have taken the initiative to come back here, it is really ironic. She stretched out her hand towards the light above her head, her fingers straightened, and the diamond ring on her ring finger still shone without knowing it. Lilith stared at the sharp-edged diamond for a while, then stretched out her other hand towards the void. After taking off the diamond ring from her slender ring finger, the familiar presence suddenly disappeared, as if there was an empty space in her heart. As a daughter of a noble who newly entered the political world, she does not need a lifelong diamond ring, nor does she need a magic tool to protect herself. Sorry. Although she didn't know whether this apology was to the person who put the ring on her, or to the compromise between her past intentions and the current moment. The East District, the prosperous commercial center of the busy empire, is still brightly lit tonight. The imperial army has gathered at the border of the Tiberai kingdom, and war is about to break out, but the shadow of war has not touched this place. The rebellion of the third princess is only seen and heard in the news. Even if it leaves uncertain doubts in the hearts of the people, the country will not stop functioning. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, and the lights illuminate the National Center for the Performing Arts located in the East District of the imperial capital as bright as day. The sky, which had been gloomy since the afternoon, was still rainless, and a sparse crowd gathered here. Gentlemen and ladies from the aristocratic class, some walked down the steps from the majestic motorcycles, while others walked slowly under umbrellas held by servants under the rainless night sky. After Lilith got out of the car, Sarat closed the door for her. In the crowd, she saw Brad Rossi wearing a windbreaker and hat from a distance. The other party seemed to notice her presence, but neither of them stared at each other for a second, nor did they communicate. Lilith put on a white dress studded with rhinestones and appeared at the venue. The guests and the nobles who were the protagonists all sighed at her beauty and purity. The youngest noble lady, who has disappeared from the social circle for nearly 3 years, will be here today. All families have learned about it through channels. To be precise, this is the path that Madame Elise paved for Lilith. Lilith straightened her back, her eyes revealed an intellectual light, and her smile was very noble. No additional decoration is needed. In less than a day, Lilith has been adjusted to the point where she can fully display the temperament that a noble lady should have. Impeccable, just perfect. Although it is not as influential as the Fu family, the recruitment is impeccable. After disappearing for 3 years, I originally thought that their family was ready to quit. Then why is it back now? Moreover, such a dignified temperament must have received specialized education. Of course, this is the secret weapon of that family. No one can deceive my heirs. When she comes back at this time, she definitely wants to get a share of the victory. Then our family can meet her needs. The whispers in the venue were all covered up by the deep music in the dome, and Lilith was able to guess the content of the words. Her appearance attracted the attention of countless radical nobles, and they all showed their own value to seduce her and extended invitations to her. Even though this is not Lilith's main purpose, she has to accept the invitations to dance one by one when she first enters the social circle. She elegantly lifted up her skirt studded with rhinestones and danced dignifiedly. The rhinestones reflected the light, making her the bright light in the venue. Lilith cleverly kept her distance from the invited nobles and answered their questions in a subtle manner. At the same time, she looked for the target in the venue with her peripheral vision that would not be noticed. The nobleman she really needed to use had already learned through her family's network this morning. Lilith remembered the appearance of the young man in his 20s through photos. That person will also be there at the dance tonight, and that person has every motive to befriend Lilith. She had already made a rough plan in her mind, but after stepping into this dizzying forest of wine and meat, Lilith, who lacked accumulated experience, was still overwhelmed for a while. Miss Lilith, Would you be kind enough to dance with me? Lilith, whose thinking is still stagnant, has not yet found a way to continue her plan, and is already exhausted inside. However, new invitations are still coming to her. Do you want to refuse first? If you are tricked into this kind of invitation that looks like a greeting, tonight's dance will ultimately be in vain. First of all, you must keep smiling and not show any reluctance, Lilith reminded herself in her mind as she turned around. But when she recognized the person who extended her olive branch, Lilith almost called out his name. Who are you? I am Brad Roche, the eldest son of the Roche family, and it is an honor to meet you tonight. Brad announced his name first and at the same time extended his hand to Lilith. Lilith still didn't know why Brad did this deliberately, so she just accepted his invitation blankly and put her fingers on his outstretched palm. The melodious music played slowly, and the eyes staring at the two people left. Brad is slightly younger than Lilith, but his similar height to Ika doesn't reveal the age difference between them. This is the first time the two of us have met. This is the setting in this circle. That's why Brad couldn't let Lilith take the initiative to say the name of the person they met for the first time. Why? Now that we are all in the same boat, I can help you within my ability. The two people of similar age danced together, and their whispers were no different from words of love in the eyes of other nobles. The Luo 11 family is a family with the surname Fu that controls the domestic military industry. In the current war period, its status has been further improved. There are very few nobles who can compete with him. In the perception of the social circle, Brad Rossi is just one of the eldest ladies in the Fu family who they like to be a good match for. Is it because of the agreement with Ika-san? It has nothing to do with that person. In short, if they fail, it will have an impact on me. It is considered a cooperative relationship. That's it? At least from Brad's words, Lilith couldn't feel the falseness, so, can I consider the relationship between the Roxy family to be solved in this way? Whatever you want, if my family is of value. Their dance steps sometimes turned into dim flickering lights, and even from a close distance it was difficult to see clearly what they were saying. Dim lighting can also create a nice atmosphere, so no one would think that what they are talking about is not love words, but an agreement that is enough to incriminate. What I need now is Roosevelt Dell. Do you know where he is? That Roosevelt Dell from the Intelligence Bureau. If I want to know where the third princess is, the Intelligence Bureau is the fastest way. Roosevelt Dell is the head of the Intelligence Bureau, the mainstay of the Dell family named Fu, and a young and promising representative. Sanders Dell of the Dell family is the leader of the Imperial Knights, Knights of the Iron Lion, and is also a big figure in military affairs management. Do the Dell family have a relationship with the Luo 11 family? I don't want to involve two Fu families at the same time, so I'm just going to try it on him first. Follow me. Brad changed his dance steps and guided Lilith's movements. As the dance came to an end, the lights from the dome illuminated the entire ball hall again. Start by remembering everyone's face and their position in the venue, that's basic. Brad whispered in Lilith's ear, and then gently released Lilith's fingers. Lilith raised her hand, and Brad gave her a slight salute. Tonight is a pleasant night, Miss Lilith. If there is a chance, I believe we will meet again. I'm also looking forward to seeing you again, Sir Luo 11. This is an impeccable dance, and no one would have any doubts about Brad and Lilith's contact. The two had already left their original position, and Lilith found Roosevelt Dell easily not far away. He was a young man with short light blonde hair combed back, and he had a shrewd atmosphere from his temperament. He didn't seem to join the dance, he just stood there and toasted and chatted with the nobles around him. Lilith slightly adjusted her unaccustomed dance steps and her breath was slightly disturbed, and walked past Roosevelt Dell. She stopped in front of the long table a little further away, seeming to be alone looking at the dazzling array of delicacies on the long table. And Roosevelt Dell separated from other nobles as she expected and walked towards her. Lilith pretended not to notice and turned around to leave. "Miss Lilith, please stay. May I ask you are?" "Haha, I'm sorry." Roosevelt Dell smiled and raised his hand. "It seems that Miss Lilith has forgotten me, but I have never forgotten Miss Lilith in the past 2 years. Excuse me, when did we meet?" Lilith still wore a smile that was not polite, and listened to Roosevelt Dell talk about the encounter they had at a certain ball. If she hadn't read the information Klaus had prepared today, she would have indeed forgotten the dance she attended when she was young. Since that fateful meeting, Miss Lilith has been inseparable from my mind. The prelude to the next song has already played, and Roosevelt Dell takes this opportunity to invite Lilith to dance with her. This unfolds just as the script prepared by Lilith unfolds. Now she is just a noble lady who was suddenly courted. Although we didn't have many opportunities to communicate in the past meetings, I believe there will be plenty of time to get to know each other in the future. It's a great honor. Lilith plays her character to perfection with a sense of guilt that fills her heart. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 314. Ika and the others had arrived at the Imperial Capital's dedicated airport for aviation magic ships to take off and land before Lilith. This time, they were unable to leave the warehouse where the aviation magic ship was docked openly, so Brad pointed out a passage for them. When the cargo tracks rolling diagonally upward past the vent in the canal, Ika jumped up and could barely reach the edge of the vent. Using the physical strength he had developed at Frost Moon Academy, he resisted the pain of rubbing his palms against the edges, turned over, raised his feet and kicked towards the square railing that closed the vent. After trying twice, I finally kicked the square bar into the vent. The palms holding the edges of the vents were scratched in a few places, but for boys, just licking them would make them better. After jumping into the vent, Ika moved the square bar inside. The space inside can accommodate a person bending down and crawling through, but it has not been cleaned for an unknown period of time, and a thick layer of dust can be felt on the palms of the hands. Fortunately, they are still wearing those work clothes. Due to the conditions, we can no longer pay so much attention to it. No matter how dirty the environment is, we must make use of it. Ika waved from the vent to the girls who were still at the starting point of the track, indicating that they could come over. This height may be fine for Ling, but Luoluo and Wei 11 definitely need Ika to pull them up. If they are not pulled up, they can only run back faster than the crawler and try again. Ling was willing to stay at the end to deal with possible unexpected situations. It was safer to leave the physical work of recruiting people to Ika. The first was Luoluo. She watched uneasily as she waited for the tracks to take her under the vent, and then jumped up like Ika. Tisk. I don't know if it's the position or the distance of the jump, but it's slightly different from Ika's visual observation. He only reached one of Luoluo's hands. If it had been a few tenths of a second later, the two of them might have missed it. The newly worn palm felt a stinging pain. If he let go now, Luoluo would fall. Brother, let me down and I'll do it again. No. What I said before is that the next time is an exception. How can I let go after I've already caught it? Luoluo should have felt the wound in her palm heating up. She did not continue to stubbornly wear down Ika's strength. She struggled to raise her other free hand, and both hands grabbed Ika's arms. Ah! Ika let out a low cry from her throat, used the hand that wasn't holding Lolo to hold herself on the ground, and used her other arm to exert strength. Lifting Luoluo up with one hand. When approaching the vent, Lolo let go of Ika's arm with one hand and grabbed the edge of the vent, reducing part of Ika's burden. In the end, Ika succeeded in pulling Lolo into the vent, although the whole arm spasmed slightly due to the excessive force. At such a height, it might be harder for Xiao 11 to come up. Yeah, no matter how light she is, there's nothing she can do if she can't reach her. Ika believed that the two people who were still at the starting point had already thought of this when they saw the thrilling scene just now. Ling should be thinking about how to do it specifically. On the other side, Ling and Wei 11 both sweated for Lugo, and they were relieved until they saw her figure disappearing into the vent from a distance. It doesn't look very high, but it's actually not that simple. Woo! Ling lowered her head and looked at Wei 11 who was moaning. It was a very risky move in the first place, but now she was even more hesitant. Looking back at the track again, she was ready to try something bold. Wei 11, listen to me, the next two of us. Brother, Sister Ling is waving over here. That guy, what do you want to do? Ika saw Ling from the starting point waving to him from a distance, and then hugged Wei 11. Then she hugged Wei 11 and stepped onto the tracks. No way, is she planning to throw Wei 11 up directly? Brother, there is no time to think about it anymore. Just be ready when they come. I know. After knowing the solution that Ling had thought of, Ika also knew how she planned to ensure her own retreat. It's so messy. When the crawler tracks almost reached directly under the vent, Ling thrown Wei 11 out as expected. Before setting off, Ling should have told Wei 11 repeatedly not to make any sound, so Wei 11 just closed her eyes tightly and held Ika's hands. Because there was no mistake in the docking this time, Ika pulled Wei 11 up with a gentle lift. But he can't relax yet. Ling, who missed the opportunity, still needs Ika's help. When Ika leaned out again, Ling, who was running back faster than the tracks, had already taken off. One hand is enough. Ling, who paid attention to the distance, knew that it was impossible to grasp it with both hands. Ika struggled to grab Ling's outstretched hand, but she had no strength left to pull her up, so she could only hold on tightly. Ling used her own weight to move through 30 degrees like a pendulum, and then finally let go of Ika after exerting force on her arm. Making a second jump in mid-air, Ling grabbed the edge of the vent. Luo and Wei 11 quickly squeezed forward and pulled Ling into the vent. Ling collapsed in front of the vent with a pop and the accumulated dust kicked up, causing everyone to choke and cough. Thank you for coming up with such a method, my heart almost jumped out. Ika sat leaning against the wall of the pipe, almost losing feeling in both arms. Luo and Wei 11's faces were stained with dust, with patches of green and white patches on their faces. Ling also leaned against the wall of the tube like Ika. He wanted to breathe but was afraid of breathing in dust, so he could only cover his mouth and nose with his hands. There is no other way, this is the only way. Sister Ling has been greatly influenced by her brother, it's all a bad influence. When did I come under his influence? Such a reckless action, I thought only my brother would do it. Lolo, you must have forgotten, right? This was already the case when we first met her. Wait a minute, Ika, if you have something to say, just say it clearly. Hey. When they inexplicably began to reveal their dark histories to each other, Wei 11's inappropriate chuckle came out. In this small space, the air flowed slowly because of this chuckle. Ah, I'm sorry. The three people suddenly looked at her, and Wei 11 suddenly became nervous, it's obviously because of me. No, that's not the case. Ika interrupted Wei 11's apology. Although it was rude to do so, everyone was already tired, so the atmosphere became casual accordingly. Can we just wait here until night? Well, Liuyan said we can't leave here during the day, so just stay here until they send someone to pick us up at night. Then I'll sleep for a while first. Ling buried her head in her hugging knees, really ready to take a rest. During the few hours spent in the aviation magic ship, everyone tensed up and waited for the moment of landing. Just as Ling said, everyone should take a rest. Liuyan will contact me after the people from the Holy See arrive. Brother Ika, don't you need to rest? It's so noisy here that I can't sleep even if I want to. In fact, I'm a pretty light sleeper. I'm a magic suit, so it shouldn't matter if I don't sleep. Who stayed in bed this morning? Ugh, only a few minutes. I'm asleep. Wake me up if something happens. Ling raised her head just to expose Wei 11's lie, and then buried her head again. Luoluo had also closed her eyes. Wei 11 glanced at Ika one last time. After he nodded to herself, he snuggled up to Luoluo and fell asleep. Ika turned on her PDA to determine the time. There were still a few hours until nightfall. Taking advantage of this time, Ika regarded the roaring noise outside the ventilation duct as a wake-up call and began to consider the next action plan. As the Holy See concentrated on transporting aviation magic ship supply materials, everyone jumped down from the vent where they were hiding. With the help of the cargo disguise needed by the Holy See, they successfully hid in the trunk of the freight locomotive and left the dedicated airport. There was no obstruction until entering the sanctuary. After the freight locomotive stopped, the staff of the Holy See told the trunk, "You can come out now," and left directly. Everyone walked out from behind a hill made of cargo boxes, and the first person who greeted them was Liu Yin. She was still wearing the uniform of the Holy See, and her long silver hair was shining in the wind under the moonlight. "Congratulations, your smuggling was successful." She half closed her eyes and spoke in a tone that could not be heard as celebrating. "This is the dedicated airport of the Holy Land, and it is now 9 o'clock at night. His Holiness the Pope is currently attending the council in August. It may take 2 days before your problem is resolved." As Liu Yin spoke, he walked quietly to their side and took Wei 11's hand as a matter of course. "Xiaoyan, please clean everyone's rooms first." "Of course, this has been done, you can just follow me." "Liu Yin, I'm sorry to cause you any trouble. These are His Holiness the Pope's arrangements. If he didn't want to meet you, I wouldn't have the right to let you live here." "Ha ha. Xiaoyan, don't drag me away. By the way, please stay in the sanctuary for these 2 days and don't move around. This is for your own good." "I understand, I'll just follow your arrangements when you get here." Now Ika just wants to meet Pope Sethis as soon as possible and wants to know why he wants to gather everyone here. When the injured and unconscious Ling was brought here before, everyone only went to the single room for nursing. However, the guest rooms used for reception include single rooms and double rooms. "It'll be fine if I live with Sister Ling. Xiao 11's room is still reserved and cleaned every day. I will also move in with you." But then I'll live alone. Anyway, Luoluo and Ling's rooms are next door. I can just leave Wei 11 to you, right? Brother Ika." Wei 11's expression seemed like she was about to cry, but Ika, who already knew about their friendship, decided to leave this time alone for them. "Although I don't know if doing this is equivalent to sending a sheep into the tiger's mouth. Just let me take care of Xiao 11. But there are no servants here to take care of guests, anyway, I will tell you everything you need to know later." In the public bathroom led by Liu Yin, everyone was finally able to change out of their dusty, baggy overalls and put on the clothes prepared for them by the Holy See. It is said that the Holy See specially prepared it for everyone, and when operating within the Bis Empire, Shimazuki Academy's uniforms will be particularly conspicuous. The clothes Liu Yin brought to Ika were regular men's pajamas. After taking a bath, Ika gratefully put on new clothes, feeling like she had been reborn. He originally planned to go to Luoluo and Ling's room to take a look, but on the way back, he noticed a familiar figure. Professor Coconut. Oh, it turns out it's Ika. Professor Coconut, who was about to go somewhere, stopped and said hello after seeing Ika. "I heard that you want to save the princess." Even in the solemn Holy See, Professor Coconut did not wear uniforms as neatly as Liu Yin. Under the night, she was still wearing a knee-length skirt full of lace and ruffles, with 2 slender pink ponytails swaying slightly under the little hat. "Well, then I asked Liu Yin about the current situation in the Empire, and she asked us to come here. I know, I saw her and Xiao 11 together when I came here. Are all your rooms over there?" Ika looked in the direction Professor Coconut was walking in, and could only see the flickering lights in the distance in the dark night. "Don't expect to go there. Only the Knights of the Holy See can enter that area. Well, if Wei 11 stays by Liu Yin's side, I don't have anything to worry about. Only then did Ika remember the question that came to mind when she saw Professor Coconut. Speaking of which, where is Professor Coconut going now? Huh? Of course I came to see you. Ah. Why are you so surprised? Aren't you my student? What you said is correct. And aren't you going to save the princess? I'll come here to make up for your homework in the past 2 days. Wait, I should be recharging my energy, right? No. Then I'll have nothing to do. Then you're just using me for entertainment. I don't care, just follow me obediently. Professor Coconut couldn't help but take Ika's hand and walk him farther and farther away from her room.